Okay, so Rafael gave me the go signal here, so maybe I will start with the introduction, and then I will obviously, whoever can speak, please. The purpose of this panel is to have a very open discussion, so everybody can raise their opinions. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bartosz Prytula. I'm the managing partner at White Star Real Estate, international real estate company, present in 5 countries across the CEE region. I'm personally responsible for the office development and office portfolio across Poland. So obviously the subject is very relevant to my daily activity. And hopefully, the conclusion will be that I will still have a job and my team will have a job, because you guys will still need the office space. I'm very pleased to be the moderator of this roundtable, particularly as the subject, is very relevant and riveting, and has been recently drawing a lot of attention because there have been. Oh, Łukasz is on. Stefan is on. Hervé is on. Okay, so maybe I'll wait. So we have 4 panelists. That's good. So I'm not by myself.
But we were already listening, but I don't know why suddenly the video. Yeah.
Good. All right.
Everything is
perfect. Okay, so I'll just carry on. So as I said, the subject of new office, as we call it, is very obviously for me and for you guys, very riveting, very relevant, and everybody in our sector is asking ourselves the same question: what the future holds for the office space. I think it's clear that the pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation of many businesses and has impacted a lot of aspects of our organizations, including the real estate aspect and the way we'll be utilizing the office space going forward. We are at the inflection point. There's no question about it. In many cases, working from home has become a new reality, and we are witnessing a profound transformation of the concept of where we work and how we work. The norm that we're all used to, and we've said it many times throughout a lot of presentation, is gone. There's going to be a new norm that we will all have to abide by. And obviously the shape and the form of the new norm is still being defined. So where we are trying to define the new norm, which will bring, at least in the real estate aspect, the individual health and well-being to the forefront as a critical priority. Many times we hear that we are going away from the old workplace-centric world to a new place called worker-centric world. An important question when it comes to my mind, and it's important for our community, is what role is the new office space going to play in the worker-centric world? I have my thoughts, obviously, about where we're going and the role of the new office space. But before I impose my thoughts and my thinking, I would like to engage all of you guys to tell me about your experience over the past 11 months. Are you guys utilizing the office space in any shape and form, and how you guys been experiencing this working from home mode? And so maybe let's just start. Each of us shares his thoughts, her thoughts about the past and about the future as well. And then I'm going to have more questions to prompt, relevant subjects. Łukasz, maybe you want to start?
All right, so Łukasz Wojtak, Schneider Electric. So it was a journey, as for everyone, but it wasn't that big shock, to be honest. So starting from the equipment, the whole shared service center was equipped with the laptop. So moving from the office space into home, not a big issue. Then we discovered actually that most of our employees are just providing support remotely, but from the office, now from home, to the stakeholders around Europe. So not a big change. The biggest change was on the dynamic of the interaction among the team members, training and onboarding. For now, the office remain open, and it's just for the reason of the ones who really can't work from home, or they really need to change the environment. But we remain working in the home office mode, and we already know we just enrolled the global policy for the home office, which give us 2 days as the minimum of the home office per week. And Schneider Electric Polska is going even further. That will be 3 days of home office per week. So that means that we will end up with 40% of the time physically in the office. That leads us to the big question: what to do with the open space? Should we keep it and transform it? Should we cut it that exactly by 60%? So that's the question we are discussing now. We already know the direction. We know that it will be hybrid model. Now we need to define the right size. We can't imagine that there is no office, but definitely smaller than the existing one.
So you will anticipate that there will be more of a reduction in your office space going forward, or is it going to be reshaping the office to be maybe of the same size, but maybe playing a different role, more of a collaboration center, brainstorming center, more of an integration center for employees?
That's the big questions we are asking among ourselves, and we also need to include the growth or changes into this discussion as well.
Okay. Maybe others want to share their view. What happened over the past couple of months in your organizations, and what are the maybe strategies being formed within your corporations?
Yes, I guess I can share. Hello, everyone. My name is Eva, and I'm representing ETEA Business Services Center. And for us, story to what Lukas was explaining, we haven't really been back into our office since early spring last year. We came back sometime during the summer, but now since early November, we've been working from home. The office has basically been empty. And for us, yes, it is also a very important question right now, because we have, even during the last year, we have kept growing our business services center. And right now we are facing a situation if we all suddenly came back to the office, we actually do not have enough seats for everyone. So the way we're looking at this problem is, we're looking at it from different viewpoints. So do we look for a completely new office space, because we can't expand the capacity of our existing ones. So if all of us want to come back, so do we look for a bigger space, or do we look for a smaller space in the combination with instituting a work from home policy that we had for time being this year, and also a shared desk policy, which is something that we are looking at. Because there's an interesting paradox that we've noticed with our employees. They are very, very keen on working from home, at least part-time. So we're also looking at having 2 to 3 days, for ability to work from home. But they quite often, if they want to come to the office, they want to come all together. So we are still facing capacity issues because we still have the same large group of people who want to be together at the same time. And it's an interesting paradox to solve, because again, you would have a smaller office space, that's half empty, but can't host everyone when they all want to come in. So yes, we are looking at it from the perspective of how to transform the office to become more of this collaboration space, that you mentioned, where people would come together for joint sessions, for brainstorming sessions, to just socialize, to hold, team building events, and things like that. Having less workspaces, and then one of the possible solutions, what we see is, as I mentioned, the shared desk policy. technically doable, but not necessarily very simple, where we would have desks that are specifically allocated for teams. But let's say if the team's capacity, I don't know, is 14 people, we would have 8 desks for that team. And then we would have like a shared pool somewhere, where people could book their desk. Let's say if the whole team, for like 14 people, and they want to have some brainstorming sessions, but they also need workspaces, that they would possibility the remaining people to book tables where to sit at, like similarly as we book meeting rooms, but they would just simply book in office space, like for them to work for that day. So yeah, that is currently where the direction where we're looking at. As I said, there's a lot of technical implementation, that needs to happen, before we can make this happen. But I'm very, very keen to hear on how everyone else is approaching this issue.
Anyone else?
So maybe me, if I am heard, because sure, I don't think I was heard. Yes?
Yes,
okay,
go ahead,
great. Very similar experience, however, started a little bit differently, because actually what happened in March for us, and we are a shared service of almost 250 people right now. One day we were asked by our headquarters to make a test evacuation of the office. And send all the employees for home office for one day. What happened is that 2 days later, we were obliged to go for home office completely. The challenge we had was that many of the employees were not using laptops, all of them desktops, as we were purely focusing on office work. And we managed, we managed to organize the things differently. So since March till even right now, we are working home. At the time when the pandemic was a little bit weaker at summertime, we decided to make a survey with our employees, and the results were a little bit surprising. So only 5% of people wanted to come back to the office. So we decided, okay, let's have the office open for the people who want to work from the office, but the preference is to keep home office as a priority. And this situation is still occurring. So right now it's exactly the same area, and on a daily basis we have something like 5 employees coming to the office. And I believe we will be keeping this for longer periods. So we will not oblige the people to come back to the office. Certainly the decisions, strategic decisions were taken that we will not expand the office spaces, even though the team is expanding. So we will be working in some kind of hybrid way, and this is our plan. Certainly the technicalities about this and all the organization stuff is still under discussion. However, I don't believe we will come back to the office in full staff. So we will permit the people to work from home if it is the preference for them. Also due to the fact that the results, we implemented additional monitoring of the performance, and the performance is not weaker, and it's even better than it was when we were fully working from the office.
Well, that's actually pretty important, because that was another question for follow-up questions. Has this working from home mode obviously impacted the performance, the efficiency, productivity of the employees? Because we obviously have a mixed bag of information. Even within our organization, we have 200 people, and we actually are majority here in the office. That's just because it's our policy. And obviously with a hybrid solution and making sure the social distance is preserved. But we found that over the months, the productivity of the employees who are stationed at home, and we've used a lot of analytical data for that and tools, has actually deteriorated. And we see this constant deterioration. So obviously there's going to be a lot of data that's going to be coming out. Is this working from home environment really productive for the organizations? But there are some more people talking about their experience, so I don't want to interrupt. We still have Mariusz, I think, that probably wants to share with us his view from his organization.
Okay, so I will try to cover both questions. Hi, my name is Mariusz. I'm heading Search Service Center at 160 people. So I think what I heard is, yeah, we haven't done anything different than most of you already shared. So obviously, you know, at early March, we sent people home, and then we measure they feeling, their performance. So there was a questionnaire sent twice a week to see what they need, how they feel, etc. And there was, of course, a lot of sessions, communications. So I think that communication and change management was really important. And then what we've done, I think in June, we decided that people would go back to the office. So what we've done, we, of course, due to the limited capacity in the office, so we haven't increased the office space, but we shared people into two groups, group A, B, and people were coming in 1 week working from home, 1 week from office. So we have like 2 shifts, I would say. And it helped us in terms of, you know, any issues with COVID related, etc. We had like kind of natural 1 week off for everyone during the shift, right? So that really helped. So we haven't, you know, spent too much time on investigating, you know, all on the paths of contact when something happened. And of course, during the first wave, it was a lot of people were busy with that. So we were quite strict. We set up a lot of, you know, rules, how to behave, you know, how to keep the distance, and people, if they are in the office, they need to wear masks and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of, let's say, policy has been implemented, a lot of communication and leading by example done. So I would say that for us, let's say, working, going is business as usual, if I look back. I think right now it's a kind of hybrid model. So people, because of course what happened is you have different types of people, right? One would say I prefer working from home. One would say I want to go back to office, and we've done the poll, and a lot of people were in the beginning afraid of public transport. So people were not really afraid of, you know, being in the office itself. They were much more afraid of communicating through the public transport. But of course, right now it has stabilized because, of course, everyone got used to the situation. So I mean, it's not a new situation as we would spoken, you know, a year ago. So as of now, you know, we work in the hybrid model, and for the future, we plan that, as most of you said, it would become hybrid model, and perhaps space would change a little bit in terms of, you know, collaboration, because I cannot imagine that, you know, people would be willing to work from home for the long time, because, you know, this contact with face to face is very much important, and this is what people are missing. Also, what is interesting, so we've just received like 2 weeks ago, we've done an annual survey of employee satisfaction. So I must say that our number almost doubled. Doubled up. So I think whatever we've done was well received by the employees, even though we haven't got any, you know, the salary increases, etc. So I think that communication and transparency and giving employees, you know, the way how to behave, and basically focusing on the lives was well received. So that's also interesting that during the pandemic that people are feeling more engaged, and we believe that this year would be much more difficult, because I mean everyone is looking for the hope of, you know, vaccination, but what we predict internally is that people will be much more, let's say, isolated, frustrated. So there will be different emotions, because of course the first year everyone was threatened by the life, and of course right now there's a hope in terms of vaccination. But if we keep people, you know, working like that, and perhaps it would happen another year or so, maybe a bit longer, we believe this year would be much more difficult. So having said that, in terms of work efficiency, we've done also measures. So indeed, you know, initially it was increasing, so people were working much more efficient. But recently we are observing that there is a lot of, you know, uncertainty, and people, I think that the comfort level is decreasing. So there's much more, I would say, emotion. So we expect that in let's say, in next few months, they will be much more difficult to keep employees engaged, which might impact on the way how they work, their productivity, etc. So I think that this is very sensitive topic. I think for all of us, what to focus on, because of course quality, efficiency is important, but I think people morale may be somehow affected.
Very interesting, and maybe I would just interject a little bit here. That's exactly what we talk to a lot of tenants, and we deal with a lot of multinational corporations, and obviously we have close to 1 million square meters across the region in terms of office space, our own as well as we manage for other landlords. And there's obviously this debate going back and forth. Do we reduce the space? Do we take this? Keep the space? Because nobody really knows. Nobody has the crystal ball. But more and more we hear about the feedback that we are getting is that yes, this hybrid ecosystem in terms of the office versus working from home will be here forever. I think this is not a dispute. I think we all agree that this is going to be part of our DNA going forward, at least for the next couple of years, until someone comes up with more research and will basically depreciate the role of working from home. But for the next couple of years, I think that ecosystem will be in place. But this collaboration center, what I mentioned before, I think it's playing more and more important role in terms of instilling the culture, in terms of having the contact with your mentors, coming to the office and talking to your mentors, to your management, getting on the same page. I think that's a super important role that the office will be playing going forward, and I think that's what we are seeing across the region. That's number one. Number two is I mentioned that the critical priority these days is health and well-being of our employees. We are going from this workplace-centric environment to the worker-centric environment. So the employees kind of at the front, and his or her well-being is number one priority for us as employers, for us as the managers, for us as the HR people. And now, for example, we see that a lot of tenants are looking for office space within projects that are more of a campus style. So they can actually spread their locations over several buildings or different floors, but these are low-rise buildings. So they can actually, their employees can come to the office, they can use the elevator, but they can also use the staircase. So that's another safety measure that employees are provided with by their employer and by the landlord and the developer. Versus, for example, high-rise buildings. Maybe in the regional cities, you don't have much of the high-rise buildings in Poland, but in Warsaw there are a lot of high-rise buildings, and a big debate was, bringing people back to these offices. You can actually instill all the safety measures within your office space. You can spread the desks. You can make sure that people come at different times. But what happens when people come to the office building and there is only one lobby? There are only few elevators that basically go through the entire building, and they all mix up with other employees. So now all of a sudden, a lot of companies are saying, yes, we prefer the low-rise buildings spread over bigger area versus centrally located big office towers. I'm not sure if this is something that you guys have come across, but this is something that I would like to also touch on in terms of the future planning of the office space and locations.
So one comment here on this efficiency, we actually observed two elements for it. So first of all is the productivity either maintained or getting up. That's the first observation we have based on the number of requests, based on the volumes done by the employee. But the second observation we also had with the home office policy, absenteeism rate dropped down significantly in 2020. So there was less sick leaves which in pandemic time might be surprising. I assume there will be less sick leave on the demand sick leave. So that was another positive factor of this hybrid or fully remote model. So,
but Łukasz, I would say that's probably because people, don't have much to do, so they have to stay home most of the time. So there's really no exposure to, to other bacteria or viruses. So that I would be cautious about in terms of, sick leave going forward when COVID goes away.
True. And in terms of building, first of all, and probably we are not the only company dealing with it, that the contracts are quite long term. So we either need to find first the way on deal with the current landlord and check what we can do with the existing space, or how we can avoid turbulence for us or for the landlord. And but in the long run, if there will be no other option, or our calculation said that we need a smaller office, we might even look for the totally new location in Warsaw. I think it's plenty. However, all of them will be high buildings, and but it's not the issue for us.
Okay. Anyone else would like to share her opinion about productivity and maybe also the preference in terms of, safety in a low-rise buildings versus in a high-rise building? Or maybe we can also talk about, different observations from your side.
Let me just jump in there also for a second, Bartosz, and say again,
Sure.
We've got about 10 more people watching and we'd love to have you actually join us so we can see who you are and get your opinions and your thoughts. So if you're in there watching, please join us. Top right, submit your approval so we can put you on screen right now. But and Bartosz, back to you. Yes.
Yeah, back to me. I guess back to you guys. This is your chance to share your view about your experience and about about the thoughts about your office space. One thing, for example, just one more thing that I would like to touch on. We see also a lot of tenants, big corporations, changing their design of the space. So they are going away more from that, big social areas that were so popular for so many years, because people were gathering there, people were socializing there. So one big chill out space, one big cafeteria, one big conference room. Now we see that they want to break it up a little bit. Now they want to actually have, several conference rooms of big in nature. They want to have 7, kitchen areas where people can, gather in smaller groups. Maybe they will be assigned to certain departments. So I think, there's more and more thinking in terms of, how the future office is going to look like and what it's going to look like. And it's going to be obviously the collaboration space, but also from the safety measure that people don't really gather in big groups. It will be broken up into smaller departments, and the smaller departments will have all the social infrastructure to interact with each other. So that's something that I've also seen personally in discussions with our tenants, and I just want to share with you guys, what's our view on this is. Go ahead, guys. Who's next?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Finally, I've got here. So hi, my name is Daiva. And thanks for a very nice discussion. And yeah, we have some thinking as well for our offices premises. I think it was Łukasz was mentioning that obviously, of course, the need of the offices is changing, but it's not that it can happen very easily, because we have some contractual obligations towards landlords which are not negotiable or very difficult to be negotiated. So there is some time commitment from the company side until we can change the office space. But in looking into the longer future, we also considering, so what's going to be the office needs and the layout of the offices. It's very evident that we will not need to count one desk per one employee. That's totally evident from various surveys, from preference of our employees. probably at the best case scenarios, maybe we'll see 50% of the personnel coming to the office at the daily basis. I wouldn't count even so high. But what does it mean in terms of the safety, in terms of the office layout? Do we need to count a bigger space per FTE? So for instance, the office standard was about 10, 12 square meters per FTE. That was the standard when you are planning the office facility. What's going to be the future standard? Do we need more square meters, like 15, because we need to guarantee employees a bigger safety space? Do we need to plan a different seating model? Do we need to plan for more collaboration spaces? So this is something that we also considering. What's going to be the future office of the shared services? I think the first question is quite obvious. We don't need a desk, individual desk and designated desk for everyone.
Yep, great. I think it's a very constructive and relevant comment. Anyone else in terms of the office design, in terms of the daily experience?
There's one, maybe I would like to add one more element that I was thinking of, because I think if you see conservatively, I think this is perhaps something that everyone is struggling, because of course the future is a bit unknown. We have some imagination how the work could happen during the having current experiences, but I was wondering in terms of the landlords, what would be the offering in terms of the contracts? Because so far the model was you found a building, you signed 3, 4, or 5 years contract, and you make a design that was like open space, big room meetings. And right now we are all saying, okay, less office space, less desks, perhaps different way of communication. Because even if you say, okay, we would need to have collaboration, I mean, it's in the opposite to the concept of hybrid work. When, for instance, one team, for instance, the team consisting of, I don't know, 10 people, 20 people, so half of the team would be working from home, and half of the team would be sitting, for instance, in the office. So in terms to enable communications, they anyway would need to connect online to see each other. So that also would change. So I was just wondering what would be what's happening in the view of the landlords in terms of enabling a kind of elastic model, or more elastic model in terms of the contracting.
I mean,
because perhaps because my point is that for the next year I can contract a space, right? And of course the point is, do I need so many desks? It's still unknown, right? And so maybe things would change in a year from now, that I would need to change my view. So is there any way that, for instance, you can sign the contract for 1 year? What is in terms of the pricing, the business case? So what is the real estate thinking about it?
I mean, I don't want to talk for everyone in the real estate sector because I have not been authorized, but I can tell you kind of a general, view and the trend. Obviously, we are in the business of predicting cash flows and securing cash flows for long term. We spend a lot of money on the buildings. We obviously finance those buildings with our investors, with the banks. So then we need to, secure, a steady stream of income. So I don't think, the lease agreements would get any shorter than they have been so far. That's my personal view. It just wouldn't make any sense because the cost of building and the cost of fitting out the space today is enormous. So I would still see that, it's a 5-year horizon, even longer. But from the White Star Real Estate perspective, from my company perspective, we've already took a long-term view some time ago, even before pandemic, and we start investing in those campus-style office parks where you have those low-rise buildings, you have a lot of greenery, a lot of landscaping area, and you provide the tenants with a lot of amenities. And also a lot of collaboration spaces, a lot of co-working spaces. So the tenants actually don't have to take, a huge amount of office space with all the conference rooms, with a space for their own personal gym or for the bathrooms, because that's already provided within the holistic approach from the campus. So So we are trying to provide, because I think, as you touched on, it's really hard to predict what the future holds for us. It's really hard to predict how many square meters you will need in the future. But so flexibility and elasticity are the key notions that I think everybody has to work with. And that's why, we obviously are thinking about it, and we are already in discussions with the tenants, and some of the leases are being renewed right now. But I think the renewals are more of a 3-year renewals, because the tenants are not able to commit for the next 5 years. But if a new tenant comes to the building, it has to be at least 5-year horizon. So I don't see any shorter term of the leases. I hope I answered your question, Mariusz.
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful.
Anyone else has questions, maybe wants to touch on different aspects of the new office subject? We are here so we can actually pick our brains and learn as much as possible from each other.
Question, because it's another one that we received, like when we did a survey with our employees to understand their views on working from home. As I said, like majority of them, they're happy to work from home. However, when it comes to working from the office, they are very keen on having their own dedicated space rather than having a shared space, like a clean desk policy. So it's any desk where I come and just sit at. If anyone else can share, do they see the same thing? Like, do you see the same thing in your business centers? And if you do, then how do you plan on addressing this? So the fact that employees are kind of happy to work from home, but at the same time, they're not willing to share a desk with someone else to make efficiencies in utilizing the office space.
Well, at least myself, I see this as a cultural transformation. Probably it will go away and people will get used to the new reality, what's coming back to the offices and co-sharing the space. We currently also have experienced part of the solution because we allow people to take the equipment home, like the monitors and even the chairs to prepare their seat if they don't have the proper conditions at home. So, but for the ones coming to the office, then they might not find the second set of the equipment in the office, and then they can use any of the available ones. So in a way, we already starting using this co-sharing, and especially in the beginning, people were, as you mentioned, everyone prefers to have his own desk with his own cupboard and keep his own stuff, and that's gonna take the time until people will get used not to keep so much personal belongings into their desks, as we currently see that they are bringing their own cups and photos and personalizing the space. I assume that this will have to change because people will not have so much privacy in the office because they have to use any available place. But maybe that's only my thinking. I don't know how others are overcoming.
No, Daiva, I agree with you. So on one hand, from my previous employer, we changed the rules. So there was the hot desking on the big floors and open space. However, that time it was still 1 day per week for the home office, or even one per every 2 weeks. So it was quite difficult concept to manage when actually people by definition were heading to the office and spending their 8-9 hours per day. So then naturally they make it own territory, keep it that as the home. But if we are now changing and this presence in the office is less frequent, we need to assure that they have their place to storage, small one, but they have this place. And then it should be some rules. It's not the ability to mix everyone with every team. They should still have some zones of cooperation, but also zones in terms of either finance, it's you keeping finance, HR is sitting with HR. They need to have these rules around that. But I agree with Daiva, this is culture change as well.
From our side, I also just can add that indeed it's a cultural change, and you know what we are doing. We also are looking where to put lockers, let's see, and small boxes for the employees. And lockers can be a little bit larger, smaller. You know, it's like a nice set of lockers, and people would put their belongings, like small flower, maybe a photo, picture, into those boxes, and they will put into the locker once leaving home. And in a few days, once they come back, of course, they pick up their things and go to them and choose the table, but indeed it's not in the entire office, but we will be we are thinking to give a designated space for certain teams, and every team, let's say, has less spaces than the team size, and in this way, again, they can rotate. Maybe someone wants to sit next to window, and again, if you sit next to the person you never sit, it's a nice opportunity to engage with, to communicate, to get to know that person. So we are slightly already speaking, we having lots of brainstorming sessions with managers how to do that, and we also asking employees input how they would think, you know, it can work for them. So we ask for their opinion, they are involved, and in this way we are together brainstorming and creating our future once we will be coming back to the office.
And actually, like this brings another interesting question. You know, like, so do you when you're talking about the groups of people that are going to be in the office? So I mean, let's say for the sake of simplicity, we have 100 people, you know, but we have, I don't know, 70 workstations, you know, so, or 50, you know, doesn't really matter. So where do you place the responsibility of ensuring that we do not exceed the capacity? So how do we ensure that we don't have a day where suddenly, you know, 90 people show up at the office? Is it like, do you leave it with your team managers? Do you have like an automated system where people can see the available capacity for that day? Like, how have you addressed that, or are planning to address that?
Yeah, I can share my experience. The way we approach, we created the app. Well, not actually created, but used one of the available public apps, which is typically used for like medical offices if you want to kind of make a reservation. So they are, or the sport clubs that they open up, you know, a certain number of the available seats in the area, and people can register. So we've done this registration during the summer because we want to keep the trace of the people coming. So in case of the infection, we can immediately trace who was, you know, in the close contact. And we also created the rule that those data are being deleted after the 2 weeks. So we don't keep the data, but that's the way how we control the number of the people coming to the offices, because the way that the other option that it will be managed by the manager, then it gives like a big burden to the managers, kind of coordinate who is coming and who is not. And this is proved to be very successful because the people can choose and make their own reservation, and they also can see how many seats are available in that area for that particular days, and they can also see who is coming from their team members. And if there is no enough spaces, they can also register for other space and go to work over there. So really great app, and it helps us a lot, and most likely we'll be keeping on using, because we started using this only for the reasons of the pandemics, but seems to be that we can use this as a ongoing registration.
Yeah. Can you share which app this is? Because is it something really internal, or is it something public?
No, this is a public app, and of course you can just purchase a license and then create your own settings, like how many seats you have, what kind of areas you have in the seats, and how many people you can allow to come. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can put the app name in the chat.
Thank you.
I have another question to you, just to share, as for the hiring process. So I was just wondering, because I mean, in the let's say in the future, the conservative model that when we hired someone, we ask person to relocate. because there was a need to work in the office. And of course, so that was the model, right? I was just wondering whether in future or right now, you consider that there will be people working for your shared services that would never show up in the office or even in the country. Because I can imagine that I, in the past, was hiring people from Africa, other parts of the world that has to relocate to, for instance, to Poland. And I'm just wondering whether the model or employee market would evolve in the way that, for instance, there will be people working from Africa, sitting in Africa, or from other parts of the world, working from even from their own computers, right? Because of course, perhaps logistics would be shipping the laptop to somewhere else would be difficult. I'm wondering in terms of the model and thinking, of course, there is some data security access and other stuff, but I just want to share and ask these questions. What is your view?
So there's a couple of things of it. I think we already experiment with recruiting people around the Poland. So we physically shipped onboarding package cross Poland. However, it remains within the same legislation, and this is the probably the biggest barrier. Polish legislation is still not following this imagination and the same taxation, social security, related to the place from where the offer is, the work is delivered. So this is the big challenge, but we already experiment. We know that our employees are no longer just seated in Warsaw. They took the risk for now because it's a matter of risk at the same like we of remote work, and still due to the COVID, no issue with it. Then we will back to this reality, how they gonna show up in the office for 2 days. If that will be really mandatory to all of them, this is still the question mark. But we definitely break our barrier, and we have people already living in Podlasie or in Szczecin who simply got our package, get through the onboarding, and they are member of Schneider Electric, formerly located in Warsaw. So that we do for the foreign, especially outside of the Europe, that's not possible. For EU, we still debating if we are brave enough to do it.
So I can just repeat what Łukasz said. We do this exactly the same. In terms of Poland, no problem. We have people who are were never in the office, and rather it will be for them difficult to come, and we might want to keep it as it is after COVID as well. But definitely not outside of Poland due to most legal restrictions and tax problems, right? Which might be caused for those employees if they work, for example, I don't know, from Italy, and they have a contract with a Polish entity. So definitely there I would be really careful.
In our case, similar. People are like, even before pandemic, we had people who worked outside Riga, and they only commuted into the office like once a week, maybe, because they lived like 100 kilometers away. So definitely no problems there. During the pandemic, now we've had a couple of cases where people have immigrated. I have a girl who's currently now actually in Warsaw. Like then there's one who is in Sweden and another one who is in Norway, and. The thing here, yes, the legal aspect is definitely something that should be considered. I mean, as long as they are considered residents of, in this case, like Latvia, then there should be no issues with the applicable tax laws. So this is something to like that you really have to look at. For how long are they outside? Like, are they just visiting? Are they just traveling the world? Like, and that's it. Or are they permanently living somewhere? And another thing is you have to look at whether they would be interested into working, like in the shared services center. So, for example, for us, it's not feasible to hire someone who permanently will live in Sweden. Because for now, while she's just there, like visiting her boyfriend, it's all fine. But if she, like the living conditions in Sweden, like in like the expenses, they're much higher than here. So we can't really afford that. So there's also the economic viewpoint that you have to look at, and whether it will be interesting for someone to work even remotely, like they might be more interested into moving to Warsaw. So there are several different aspects, but for now we see that we might be perfectly fine, you know, like, or at least somewhat fine with people working from remote locations in Latvia. Like, in this case, then other things have to be considered also, as like there, as in the other discussions of roundtables here, which is how to ensure that the people do not lose connection with the company, that they stay connected to their team, that their performance doesn't is not affected by not being, you know, like not working together with other employees and so on.
The ones who have shared experience that you also hiring the people who are not located in the same city, but located in other cities. We also trying to implement this practice. One of the challenges that we are facing is the IT support, and the fact is that the field support is provided only in the premises. So, for instance, if you need like a regular service desk support, of course, they can connect remotely and fix your issue. But there are certain things that can be done only on the premises, like changing the laptop, giving the laptop, or if there is any support required for the hard equipment, not the software, then it can be done only on the company premises. So there is no other solution. And I'm guessing that even if we hire people from other cities, you know, there might be instances that they would be forced to come to the actual office. How do you solve this, or you don't have those issues?
That's interesting. Thank you.
All right, I think we've touched on a lot of interesting subjects, and obviously we are still evolving and developing our personal, you know, strategies on, you know, how the new office space is going to look like. And I don't, you know, thank you for being the fortune tellers. And obviously, you know, we as the landlords, you know, are scratching our heads every single day because, you know, we are in business just because you guys need the space. And, you know, the conclusion is, I think the office will be still oh, sorry guys, something. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, something got frozen for a second. So the conclusion is that the office space is going to obviously play a different role, and the role is still being defined in front of us. And I think we all contribute to defining this new role of the office space. But I believe, you know, even there might be some reduction of space, there might be some expansion of space, depending obviously on the business of the nature of the business of the companies. But there's definitely going to be a redefinement of the office, and with this we all have to cope with. But I stay very positive in terms of, you know, the new role of the office space. My view obviously is, you know, very optimistic that the office space will be a very important tool in terms of keeping the talent, in terms of bringing people together, instilling the culture, the DNA of the company, and increasing the collaboration. But obviously the hybrid mode, the hybrid ecosystem, work system, I think that's here to stay for a while. And we need to, you know, write a new chapter in our strategies. So I think that will be the conclusion. I think we have 55 minutes, if I'm not wrong. I think we exhausted pretty much every minute of it. So I want to thank you guys for this, you know, for this chat. We obviously can still, you know, meet one-on-one in the networking sessions. So at your disposal, please look at White Star in our portfolio. We are here to serve you guys. And I'm still glad to hear that we're going to have a job, you know, that office space will be still in some shape and form needed in the future. So thank you guys for your valuable time.
Thanks.